Nikkei Asia News Roundup
with Jada and Brian. Welcome to the Nikkei Asia News Roundup with your hosts Jada and Brian,
bringing you the latest updates and insights on the dynamic world of Asia and more.
Now let's delve into the headlines. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.
Thailand faces a $1.85 billion loss in trade with Cambodia this year, unless the sides reach a lasting resolution to the conflict, according to a Thai government estimate, as the two sides prepare assistance for those directly affected by the fighting.
Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. on Wednesday ordered the suspension of all rice imports for 60 days in a bid to protect domestic farmers.
Chinese exports of surplus plastics have continued into 2025, pushing down prices in the Asian market and threatening producers in Japan and elsewhere. In the first half of the year, export volumes of commodity-grade resins have surged, doubling in some cases, while export unit prices fell by as much as nearly 20%.
Pakistan has approved the long-delayed expansion of an arterial road running from Karachi to the border with Afghanistan that has been dubbed the Killer Highway on account of frequent fatal accidents.
Government efforts to ban gasoline-powered scooters and other two-wheeled vehicles in part of Vietnam's capital have companies like Honda Motors scrambling to reassess their strategies.
8 decades after the U.S. dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, survivors' accounts of their experiences are helping to shape a public taboo around future use of nuclear weapons, while geopolitical tensions stoke fear that they could be deployed again. Now moving on to the next segment.
Own part of a Banksy for $67? Young Japanese dabble in alternative assets. Young people in Japan are putting their money into services that let them own shares in fine art or luxury cars for small sums as their investment horizons broaden beyond stocks. Such fractional ownership allows novice investors to gain financial exposure, for example, to an artwork by Banksy for 10,000 yen or $67, or a Lamborghini for 100,000 yen. If a sale is approved at a general owners meeting or when the ownership period ends, the rights can be auctioned off or traded between members. Some members are simply art lovers, while others buy shares as investments. Japan's art market is growing. Tokyo-based SBI Art Auction reports that its auction sales totaled about 6 billion yen in 2024, nearly 7 times the level of a decade earlier. 53% of successful bidders were in their 40s or younger. Art is not the only investment option. And Owners, a Tokyo-based company that offers fractional ownership of art and other luxury assets, added luxury cars in 2024. Interest is also growing in real estate, where fractional owners of office buildings and condominiums receive rental income and sale profits. And aircraft have become a new offering, for which individuals can earn lease income with a potential return of about 6% in the first year.
Shipping rates dive as China-U.S. front-loading tapers off. Shipping activity between China and the U.S. is expected to slow down during the usually busy third quarter, when retailers stock up for the back-to-school and holiday shopping seasons. Rates on trans-Pacific routes have fallen to the lowest level since December 2023. The average spot rate from Asia to America's west coast has dropped nearly 60% since the market peak on June 5th, when retailers were rushing to make purchases after Washington and Beijing reached a preliminary agreement to pause tariff hikes. Those orders, however, are tapering off. Analysts expect the rates to continue falling as August progresses, moving toward $2,000 per 40-foot equivalent unit versus over $5,500 2 months ago. Some shipping lines are cutting back on services across the Pacific by redeploying ships to serve trade within Asia, while other shipping companies have increased blank sailings, skipping ports or scrapping journeys entirely on Asia-US routes, according to Demerco. The traditional Q3 peak season was brought forward by front loading, so there is little hope for carriers of any significant pickup in demand for the remainder of the year, said one senior shipping analyst.
And now for news highlights. Today we are sharing a couple of Nikkei Asia's most well-read stories in the last few days.
Yes, and actually looking at the top 10, there's a lot of tech stories, including EVs and autos and AI, but I think one of the stories we should introduce is an exclusive news that was reported by our tech correspondent in Taipei, and it's about the world's biggest chip maker.
TSMC, which
Yes.
is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation. Or company.
Company, yeah.
And it just recently fired 2 workers for allegedly stealing secrets,
Yes.
gathering secrets. They haven't given details on what exactly and how much was involved, but it seems pretty serious.
Yeah, it seems like, so as you mentioned, a lot of the details are still under investigation, it seems like. But the concern is that it could have been sensitive information related to TSMC's cutting-edge chip technology, which is the 2-nanometer chip technology. And the company is planning to go into mass production this year for the 2-nanometer chips. And it's saying it's 2 current employees and 1 former employee were related in this violation of rules that TSMC has found. The story has comments from the High Prosecutor's Office of Taiwan, so it's a matter of national security as well.
Yeah, we were talking about how we have a lot of tech stories in our top 10, but we also have a lot of trade stories that are vying for the top 10, and this kind of covers both of them in a way, because the 2-nanometer chip technology is part of what Taiwan calls its national core critical technologies, so they take this stuff very seriously.
Yeah, it seems like. And we actually had a follow-up story published, and this is, again, it's relating to the TSMC story, but Tokyo Electron, which is Japan's largest semiconductor equipment maker, it said that it fired an employee suspected of involvement in the theft of trade secrets from TSMC. So it's already, involving Taiwan, Japan.
This sounds like this could be a story that keeps on going, doesn't it?
Yes, true.
How far does this go?
Yeah, and we have just seen Trump kind of announce that he will possibly impose 100% tariff on the semiconductor sector. So that's another concern for the industry.
There's so much going on with semiconductors right now. We have another story that it's not in the top 10, but I bet it's close, about how AI, because of AI and investments in AI, all the leading major semiconductor makers are planning to ramp up production this year. They already are. And looking to next year to do even more. And it just keeps on going.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, China is trying to make more homegrown chips because of the trade situation and probably because of national security issues, including in their electric cars, which is another issue when it comes to trade. So it's all linked.
Yeah, very much so. And obviously Trump wants companies to produce in the U.S. So TSMC they have one of the biggest plants there, I think, but a lot of companies might be urged to move over even more production in the U.S., but that'll probably be more, a few years ahead, and we'll see how that goes. Trump, it's a difficult issue because Trump might not be in office 3-4 years later, but do you want to move production, in the U.S.? So that's kind of all affecting investment decisions for these top chip makers.
So if you wanted to be not above the board and you really cared about having production in one specific spot, maybe taking that information surreptitiously would be to your advantage. I'm not maybe that's what the motivation is behind some people that got fired.
Yeah. And you mentioned EVs, but actually the most read story was about Malaysia's auto sales. So the headline goes, Malaysia's quarterly auto sales top Indonesia's for the first time. And it's a story that Nikkei Asia actually compiles every quarter to look at Southeast Asia's auto sales. But this time, Malaysia's sales topped Indonesia's for the first time. And it seems like EVs and domestic brands are doing very well for Malaysia, while Indonesia is seeing a big drop.
Which is interesting because Indonesia has a lot more people.
Yes, because
Malaysia.
It's the largest economy in
it's also
ASEAN, right?
Indonesia is also the largest economy in Southeast Asia. So having Malaysia top them is pretty significant.
One of the issues that the story points out is that Indonesia is actually facing a shrinking middle class. So that's why that's affecting auto sales, which is an interesting take, I think.
And one I'd like to touch on, because it's always interesting when an opinion piece makes the top 10. Sometimes they do. We have a lot of opinion pieces and a lot of opinions. And I'm always curious to see which one sort of rose up up the popularity ranks. And this one is a headline, Japan desperately needs to work on its global human resources. And global human resources is in quote marks because it is a government phrase that was initiated about 15 years ago, mostly used by the economy and ministry and some businesses. It's modeled after something Toyota did. The problem is people are confused what exactly this is meant to do. It's meant to make students and younger people in Japan more internationally oriented and also make businesses more comfortable in an international setting. And the problem is that it doesn't really seem to be working that well because it's just not being promoted that well. There's a lot of quotes from people who sound like they're interested in being a part of this, young students, other entrepreneurs, and they're just saying, I haven't really heard much about this. So the story talks about that.
Because it's been in effect or whatever for 15 years or so, right? And honestly, I've never really heard of it. So, that's an issue that Japan probably has to work on. And that brings us to the close of today's episode.
We look forward to having you join up again for the next edition of the Nikkei Asia News Roundup.
Stay informed, stay curious. Until next time, I'm Jada.
And I'm Brian. See you again, and take care. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.